CaesarBusiness.com podcast with Tony Rourke and Kevin O'Flaherty.
CaesarBusiness.com, making you money.
Share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn,
Twitter, our blogs, YouTube videos, listen to our podcast, getting so hot that it's burning up the stereo.
Welcome to the CaesarBusiness.com podcast. My name is Kevin O'Flaherty from O'Flaherty Law. I'm joined by EJ Johnson, my co-host from Liliana Properties, and Clark Beckley from Your Story Counseling. Our topic today is going to be relationship-based business. So thanks for joining us today, Clark.
Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
I own Your Story Counseling here in downtown Downers Grove, and we primarily are a group practice that provides counseling services and interventions to clients across the lifespan, all the way from children on through older adults dealing with either chronic mental illness, some more common routine life circumstances, whether it be grief, anxiety, and also kind of exploring their professional capabilities as they interact with other people out in the professional world.
Well, we had lunch today, and we were talking about kind of another aspect of your business that deals with kind of helping business owners work with, employee issues, and tell us about some of the other things that you do that you wouldn't normally think of when you think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I'm encountering as I get out and I meet people, especially small business owners or people that are certainly in decision-making positions within their own organizations, is just how are they now better able to shape their interactions with their employees while still respecting the leadership boundary. So in terms of conflict resolution, what is a leader in a business bringing to some inter-office conflict or some struggle that you're experiencing? And kind of me being able to bring into that a behavioral overlay and kind of increasing a business owner's emotional intelligence as to what they're bringing to that interaction to better understand, and also effectively empowering the employees to best understand what they're bringing to those business interactions also.
You also work with, I heard you talking about working with like a soccer team, and tell me about that sort of thing.
Yeah, one of the things we did as part of our kind of pro bono expansion is trying to work with local organizations, whether they be athletic organizations or not-for-profits, in just, again, increasing their awareness of why they may be experiencing some of the problems. One of those might be a local soccer club whose parents are seemingly having unreasonable expectations of the capabilities of their young soccer players. So amidst that, trying to promote the parents and developing a greater understanding what their 6-year-old soccer player can do developmentally. What they can actually understand and hear from the coach or hear from their parents, obviously to be a better soccer player, but also to experience the support as the social activity that it may be.
Okay. So if like a business owner wants to work with you and is having trouble managing people in his business, what would that process look like?
Well, one of the things I would primarily want to do is get to know the business owner a little bit better, again, on a relational level, and have them come into my office and just explore a little bit about their history in the business. Is this a new venture for them? Some of the barriers that may represent if it's a new set of skills, but also exploring their strengths as a leader and how they can model that to their employees. But then the tougher side, where I kind of beg for some transparency with that business owner, is really delving into what barriers they may have already identified that may prevent them from certainly expanding or growing their business and being an effective leader and modeling those qualities for any subordinates that they may be working with.
The first thing I think of it when I heard you say what you do as far as like going in and helping the business owner, it's like that movie The Office, where like they just sit down and just start drilling you. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Is it something like that, or is it more like?
Yeah, I would say just as direct, but I think my perspective would be more in actually hearing kind of the voice and the tone of those that are actually, I would say, kind of the frontline staff that are actually experiencing business owner or the management team or the leadership team firsthand every day, and kind of developing a better understanding of their tone rather than, we always think a consultant, everyone goes hide in the closet kind of thing. This is more like, let's sit down and talk and learn, more for growth and expansion than actually elimination or kind of rebuilding or remodeling the office, so to speak.
So it's not a naga not gonna work here anymore. Office Space is the movie.
Yeah, I mean that's what I thought of the Office Space.
That's the first thing I thought of.
It's just like walk in and be like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
Everyone's hiding under the desk. Yeah.
So for someone who's not getting the results out of their employees that they're looking for, or they've got a conflict that they, between themselves and their employees, or between employees, it sounds like what you do is you'll help that business owner first kind of look at what they're doing wrong as a leader, what they can improve as a leader, but you'll also kind of go on the ground level and talk to those employees and kind of get their perspective and help bring the two sides together.
Yeah, absolutely. And not by any means inserting myself in the middle of it, but again, kind of promoting the relational side of it and making sure the business leader, again, is kind of aware of their own availability to have some of those conversations or how they present themselves to their staff. Especially in small business, you're really hoping people are working hard and dedicated, even more so maybe in a larger organization. I mean, everyone's really aware of the role and the very detailed specific function of each person in that small office. So I think it's really important to understand personality types and certainly, again, what the owner or the leadership team is bringing into those interactions that either promotes conversation and productivity or, frankly, inhibits it.
Have you ever been in a situation where you pretty much knew the business owner was the problem and you had to kind of do that confrontation?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And be able to talk to him and be like, this is the problems you didn't change? I
was involved in a circumstance, not through my practice, but through another professional opportunity where I managed a multidisciplinary team that was made up of physicians, detectives, and specialty investigators or child welfare investigators. And my role was to get them all to play well in the sandbox together. And one of the things I quickly identified when I heard from them what their struggles were in communication and perception about the function of each role on that multidisciplinary team was that they all actually were the experts. You know, the detectives were certainly the experts on the criminal side of things and crafting a criminal investigation and promoting the highest quality investigation that would obviously as close near as possible guarantee prosecution, where the physicians on that team certainly were experts just because of schooling in their subspecialty. So their perception was that they were the experts and they were driving the actual investigation. So in, again, promoting these conversations and having some low-level systems in place so that they increase their understanding of the scope of what each expertise brings to that multidisciplinary team. And that mitigated quite a bit of communication problems.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making as leaders? I'm sure every personality type makes different categories of mistakes, but what are some things that you see people doing wrong that are kind of the easiest fixes for you?
Well, I think the one that makes me cringe the most is kind of that devout perception by the business owner or business leader that they truly are the business leader. They provided the funds, they organized the business, they had the idea, but I got to believe that there's just a strength in leadership in some of the people that they've chosen to work with them. So not relying so heavily upon themselves for that area, I guess, of expertise or guidance or counsel, and making sure they're actually recognizing the capabilities of those that are around them. Because you don't want to, I don't want to be in a room full of people who think they're the greatest at what they do. I actually want to be in a room full of people who want to learn how they can be greater because of the room full of people. I think that's a key miss, is recognizing who's around you that can best kind of promote your idea that you're essentially funding and bearing the risk for.
Mm-hmm. We had a situation in our office that I handled what I think self-diagnosing. I think I handled it well, but I wouldn't have handled it well 3 years ago. We had the profit arrow pointing in the right direction a couple of weeks in a row, or pointing in the wrong direction a couple of weeks in a row, and rather than diagnosing the problem and coming up with a solution and dictating it down to people, I got my 2 attorneys and my office manager in a room, and I did the legwork to kind of prepare the data for them to show here's our year-to-date numbers on everything. What do you guys think we should do? What's the fix to this problem, rather than having a problem in advance? And I think they responded well to that, rather than me coming down on them saying you guys need to produce more. It's here's what our production numbers are, here's what our retainer management numbers are. This can't continue. How do you guys want to fix this problem?
Yeah, and I think increasingly, certainly in this, whether it be electronic or real social community that we've created for ourselves, I think everyone has an expectation that they should have the opportunity to have some input. And again, that's not to say we don't respect appropriate management boundaries or supervisory boundaries. But to the same extent, I got to believe, again, especially in a small business environment, you have an opportunity to truly handpick people. And why not? Again, because it's your risk, it's your opportunity, your idea. Why not take the time to develop that staff to actually bring solutions or bring ideas and involve them in the thought process, rather than bearing the responsibility exclusively by yourself? Because it is truly your handpicked team, and that team's also a reflection on your values and your goals. So if you're struggling with that team, it is unfortunately a direct reflection upon your selection or your selection process.
Yeah, EJ was saying, do you ever have a client where it's the business owner's fault?
Yes.
I would imagine almost all the time something, the buck stops with the business owner. It ultimately comes down to their fault, whether it's the people they picked or, the training process or the way they're managing those relationships. I think identifying the problem within yourself and not trying to blame somebody else, but fixing it,
Internally.
with the way you're leading is probably a pretty good first step.
Yeah, and I think a classic example that you see in a smaller business is you have an office manager, but you have a business owner, or you have principals or whomever you have in that environment. And regardless of rank or hierarchical structure, a strong office manager who gets personalities, who can manage the day-to-day operations of the functional side of the business, but also understanding that, hey, Kevin's great at doing this, or hey, Kevin's going to really cringe when he hears this. That person being, again, emotionally intelligent enough to shape that message and how they deliver it to you, so that you can best hear it rather than react to it too. So I think there's a critical element of making sure the business owner understands their areas certainly of capability, but they're also their area of deficit, so that they can better strengthen their team.
We went through a funny transition, an interesting transition over the past 4 years, where initially people would bring me problems that I would solve. And then I got to the point where I had to tell them, I don't want to hear a problem without your proposed solution.
Amen.
And now we're at the point where I don't even get the problem. They just solve the problem.
The solution's already there.
And it's rare that it even, comes across my desk unless, they have a real, difficult problem that needs my personal attention. And, even to the point where we were having lunch with a real estate agent, and one of my attorneys that practices real estate law says, oh, yeah, for real estate agents, we're offering, the first time that you bring a client to us, we'll do that closing for free to prove ourselves to you. Like, oh, they're giving a $500 discount on their own without running it by me. I love that. That's a great idea.
Was that before or after the nausea? No,
no, but it was funny that they didn't even think they needed to ask me to do that.
Yeah.
And I was pretty proud of the team I assembled for just kind of thinking
the initial
about stuff
step
like that. And now maybe they should have run it by me, but if everything has to be run by the owner, then nothing can really get accomplished.
Well, and I think the growth is only vertical then too, in their understanding. Where if you got this image where you can when you first plant a tree, you got the string around the tree and the stakes or whatnot. You want to keep the tree upright, but as that tree grows, you remove the stakes and branches sprout on their own, and that's because you're promoting the growth, you're promoting the development and strength of the tree. I mean, I got to use the same analogy with people too, where you're promoting an environment where they can explore again by making mistakes, but making mistakes amidst a constructive environment. It's certainly promoting growth and development, and again, that's certainly benefiting your overall product that you're delivering.
Yeah. Before we move on to the topic, another kind of personal story is one of my leaders is someone that's very blunt, and at first I considered that a negative, where it was. I gave him a case, and he's like, you know what, I'm not going to make any money on this case. This isn't a profitable situation for me. Why don't you give it to somebody else? And I was like, at first I thought that was pushback, but as we got to work with each other and know each other better, the fact that he's going to tell me what he's thinking and not, come to work thinking, all right, I'm going to go find a new job because I don't like this and blow sunshine up my butt the entire time is something I came to value. And we were able now to have frank conversations. We were able to have that conversation. Hey, the profit arrow is pointing in the wrong direction. What do you want to do about it? Where we both know that we can be open with each other, and he's not going to get fired if he's frank with me, and I know that he's going to give me his true opinion and not just going to say, screw this job, I'll truck along until I can find something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always thought the military is a lock on how they kind of conduct meetings or those kinds of exchanges, where they always start with the lowest ranked person in the room and work their way up, right? Because there's no way, again, if we use the office manager and you got a room full of principals or whomever, the office manager is not going to speak up if you yourself's talking first. So being able to listen, again, from the front line all the way back up, certainly develops a richer, more authentic decision. But again, it promotes, like you said, an opportunity for someone to feel that they can be frank because you've got a pattern of listening to them in the past too.
Sure. So let's break into the topic, the relational side of business. What do you have to say about this, Cliff?
I think it just kind of thinking about what, I have always thought was important, especially for non-business types like myself, and now growing to become more of a business type person. I wanted to reflect back just on how I made my decisions and who I decided to do business with as I was not only setting up my clinical practice, but also sustaining my clinical practice. To what professionals and why did I turn, and how did I ultimately pick them? And by and large, it comes down to feeling as though my exchange and my interaction with them were based on authenticity, and not a hard sell because you're, the best accountant in town, and you have the highest volume caseload, and you only specialize in special businesses or whatnot. But really, truly allowing the potential client to really understand you as a person. And again, not artificially saying I have 2 kids and you have 2 kids. Oh, look at that. Now we should do business together. But really allowing kind of a vulnerability and exchange information. And again, being authentic rather than truly making it about the product. And I always think I tell this story over and over again, especially when my wife does business development, and certainly everyone around me is trying to develop a client base. And one of the things I think about is there was a car salesman that I like so much. The guy wasn't schmoozing me; he was a car salesman. And I think I think if there ever was a salesman people are most skeptical of, it's always a car salesman, right? Right? Yeah, and we don't even that doesn't mean peer-reviewed literature. I mean, we know for a fact car salesmen, people have a fear of that. And I think that I go back to this guy that I purchased 1 car from, and I just had such a great experience with this guy throughout the 23 hours it takes to go through the process of buying a car. After having been to other car dealerships, same manufacturer, shopping price, bought a car from this guy. Next time I needed a car, I went and bought back another car from this guy. Third time I needed a car, I went even followed him to a different manufacturer. And when I think about that relationship, that's kind of a guide point for myself and how I'm trying to portray myself when I'm even trying to build my business. What was it about this guy, Joe, who worked in Elgin that just, hit it off with me? And it wasn't this artificial exchange and patting me on the back and saying, oh, we'll get you the best car there is. Because the product really didn't matter. Because again, I'd been to other car dealerships and the price is always going to be the same. So what qualities did this guy Joe possess that really kind of brought me into it? And it was shared father experiences. It was, we got to talking just about everything, fishing and all of the other things that we enjoyed. I could tell that he was being authentic because he had some pictures around his little workspace and, showed me some pictures of his kid and some of the things that they do. And that drew me in. And now, don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily disbelieve that was certainly a tactic that he was using initially. But I knew when I came back, he understood the reason I was coming back was because he was the person I wanted to do business with. It wasn't going to be buying the same car at a different dealership for a better price. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, it really didn't come down to price in those second and third vehicles. So I always think back about that because, again, why would I go back to the same car salesman? Because, again, we're just trying to save money. But he just kind of exemplified the way I would hope to do things if I were certainly in that position. And it all goes back to that authentic relationship. And when I talk about this sometimes with people that are in sales or business development, they're like, yeah, but if the guy walks out the door, I may never get him back. Or the woman comes in and we have this great conversation, she's going to go down and the next guy's going to be doing the same thing. I would always challenge that because, yeah, certainly that can happen to some extent. But if you're truly being authentic and you're truly just exhibiting those consistent qualities, I got to believe that's a long-term relationship that you're planting seeds for. And they'll certainly come back just because of that. So that's kind of the base element of just kind of how I try to, again, portray myself and just being authentic and vulnerable and genuine with people.
I think a key word that you said there was being vulnerable, mm-hmm. And there's being willing to share a little bit about yourself, not just, I have 2 kids, you have 2 kids, but, opening yourself. It's one thing to be. You see this a lot with attorneys, and I keep going back to this because this is a point of reference where they've got their attorney facade up, and they'll talk in legalese, and they'll try to look really professional, and almost to the point where they're intimidating. And I think the best attorneys are the ones that are down to earth and will speak to you like a regular person, mm-hmm. and will make a fine line between friends and clients, and just be willing to ditch the legalese and ditch any sort of sales pitch and just kind of look you in the eye and talk to you in plain English and try to help you solve whatever problems you have.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how few there are like that. And like you said, you're not going to want to go to an accountant just because they've got the biggest book of business in town or because they specialize in this issue. And all of our businesses, resumes are, a potential client or a potential patient can't really tell the difference between a good resume and a bad resume. Yeah. And they can't assess legal skills, from an initial consultation. What they can tell is whether you come off as a trustworthy person and someone that they can count on to care about them as an individual.
Yeah. And I think people forget, or at least, again, businesses that have some kind of sales component or business development component, where I think they often forget that when you're going into your first interaction with the client's expecting a sell. The client's expecting some tactic. The client's expecting something artificial or stereotypical even. So I think, again, not tactically disarming them, but showing them actually that you're doing a job and why you're doing your job, what you like about your job, what your struggles are with your job. Because when it comes down to it, people do business with people they don't like all of the time. But why? Again, if you've got 3 or 4 accountants in town, you've got 3 or 4 realtors that, that are out there that you see their name, they've got the name recognition. Ultimately, you should be choosing the person with whom you're most comfortable and not allowing them to kind of control that decision for you. Because there certainly isn't any reason to do business with someone that you dislike when you're truly the consumer. Certainly in partnerships, you have to manage some difficult personalities and difficult circumstances, but there's no reason to make that decision with someone you don't like.
I think for me, the key word was authentic, because doing business with most people, you get what I call that wall, where you get up to them and they're that person they want to be, but they're not the person who they really are.
No,
It's like I always tell my wife, it's a 30-day waiting period. Mm-hmm. In 30 days, they start to become who they really are, and you start to see that wall coming down, and that personality might not be the same personality you remember from that 30 days. And I think that was the key, because when you're doing business, you get that 30-day wall, and you like seeing this person, but the person who comes off just, this is me, this is who I am, I'm going to do as much for you as I can. And that's the person you usually go for. You don't go for the one who sits back and says, hey, I'm here, but I'm going to try and see what I can do.
Yeah, and there's the relatively new science of assessing and evaluating how our interpersonal skills are eroding because of the digital age that we're in right now. And I also, I got to believe that being relational is actually not what is most common these days. No. Doing business via computer or even over the phone isn't as desirable as someone having that face-to-face contact. So just by being relational, you're actually being different, even though it's an old school skill. Going back to something that's tried and true, and actually a handshake and spending lunch time rather than time sitting across a conference table. It's certainly beneficial, that interaction.
Well, these days, they don't even do FaceTime anymore. So you're on a phone, you make a deal happen, and that's it. The deal happened, you never even met the person.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the more we talk, I just had recently I was trying to identify a viable payroll provider, and ultimately my decision was based in part on the referral from someone, but also the time spent with the CPA that ultimately is doing my payroll. And just by sitting there and having the conversation, I realized he was engaging me in a conversation about what he does and how he can better serve me, and making that unique to our experience. And just, again, it was in the comfort of my office, talking about stuff that was important to him and to me, certainly increased, again, my engagement and just making sure I wanted to follow him, in business. So I think that was critical. It was a critical decision for me. And I think, again, if you read about this, whether it be online or in some of the, Forbes does some articles on relationship building in business, obviously, and some of the other kind of higher end publications, I think that they still treat this relational component to business as a soft skill. But again, it more and more, I think, is becoming more critical because of our separation from one another. I think there is certainly a hard science to it. So I don't know that it's as soft a skill as people are saying anymore. I think it's essential, or will become more essential as we become, again, more separated.
So what do you think the difference between someone who's coming off as authentic and someone who's not is? Is it just them being comfortable in their own skin and relaxed and not worrying too much about what the other person thinks?
Yeah, I think, I said it, you echoed it with just the idea of vulnerability. We're not talking about our problems with people, but we are certainly talking about, gosh, I can't believe I've been in business for a year and this is what I did, this is what I did wrong, this is what I did well. There's no harm in talking about that because you're certainly imparting knowledge and experience on the person, but you're also showing them where you're at. And kind of what your needs are too. And I mean, there's a buzzword out floating around on the internet. They call it social capital. Are you making deposits in those interactions socially with your business relationships? Are you developing a social bank account so that you can call upon that as you, again, increase the frequency of your relationship or further develop that relationship? But I think that, again, potential clients are expecting interaction that's going to involve some component of a sale. Or why you should use me, or why you should use this product. So that's a given. They're coming into that. So just leave it at that. I think making the rest of it about just, hey, who are you? How'd you get here? Why do you need this? Tell me more about your business. Those kind of conversations, rather than just spending the time talking about the product, because there's two people that are making a decision about whether the product's even going to be used.
And I find when you are talking about the product, it's best to do educational selling. To the extent that you're going to be selling, just teach.
Absolutely.
And I found that my seminar presentations, we were talking about this at lunch today, my seminar presentations are basically just my initial consultations. Mm-hmm. It's not a whole lot different. It's just, I've got a certain amount of information that the person sitting on the other side of the table from me needs to know in order to make an educated decision on what they're going to do. So, my process is talk to them, shoot the shit a little bit, learn a little bit about them, and then, see what they came here for, and then see what they want to learn. And I'll usually tell them, here's what I'm going to discuss, and here's what I'm going to teach you today. Teach them that, and then, then there's no selling involved. It's do you need it or don't you?
Yeah, and I think when you're doing that too, I think again the potential client is sitting there, and when you begin doing that, they see you brighten up a little bit. They see why you're doing what you do. And certainly that enthusiasm obviously is infectious. And I think it breeds confidence in someone who is on the fence. They're deciding, hey, there's this guy who's $520 less a month, and there's this one who's a little bit more. But gosh, this guy's excited about what he does. And that, again, that authenticity and just showing that engagement. I know as a consumer, I believe that's going to infiltrate our interaction as, client and provider. Absolutely.
Is there anything else you want to add about relationship-based business?
Yeah, I think the other component that's often missed is, I think I talked to you about this a few weeks ago, where as the business owner, don't forget oftentimes, especially if your name's associated with the business, there's kind of an element of involvement the client wants to have, or knowing who the business owner is. So even if the time permits during a consultation when they're meeting with an attorney, an associate attorney in your case, stopping in to make sure you say hi to a potential new client. Because again, it shows engagement. It shows why everyone's doing what they want to do. It's showing why it's important. They may even perceive it as your check-in to make sure the associates are doing the best job that they can possibly do with a new client too. That, and also I think the component of social media, realizing that using social media also makes you more relatable or accessible. So a blog, when you're publishing a blog and you're the owner of a law firm, and again, in your case, or me as a practice owner, connects them with me, and they can pick up tones in that blog, and they can pick up that passion more so than they can in an email or a text conversation too. So I think that's another way to kind of deliver, again, just some of that energy or that excitement you hold for your business that time and time again is certainly going to engage clients and certainly differentiate people.
When I started doing my blog, I went out of my way to make the articles not stuffy. Yeah. I would use, superhero hypotheticals of, Superman and Lex Luthor and, stuff. I'm a superhero nerd. I enjoy it. So it's stuff that I cared about. If I were doing it today, I'd probably use Game of Thrones as a hypothetical, but not in all your interactions with people, not trying to be stuffy, not show people how smart you are, but show them how down to earth you are instead.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, Clark, if someone needs help in either aspect of your practice, from the business end of things or from the personal end of things, how can they reach you?
Our website's yourstoryinc.com. OnPurposeGrowth.com, and our phone number is 630-442-1895.
All right. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
That's it.